a pleasant Sunday to you. Welcome to Lone Star Park at Grand Prairie. We're back on the turf today after 4 straight racing days where previous rain had knocked us off. We're back on the turf. You'll see it's listed as good. Main track is fast. Overcast skies today, but should be a nice day for racing for Extreme Racing Day number 2. Alongside Rick Lee, I'm Jim Byers. Thanks a lot for joining us. Rick, we had yesterday Extreme Racing Day number 1. It was pretty good racing for the extreme racing. I mean, the zebras kind of did their thing, but there were fewer buckers than we usually see. Still had a couple riders spilled. Ostriches, we had an ostrich run really nice and straight. The camel racing was even a little more orderly than sometimes they are. As far as on the track, favorites are winning at a big clip so far, but yesterday there was one stretch where it was just inexplicable.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss since I'm a clocker. The clocker that rode the camel, wanted me to give him a shout-out.
Okay.
Jonathan won the camel race, shout out to him. He's back today, actually.
Okay, good.
He's going for a repeat, he said.
Right.
He's also a valet, and he said his riders aren't doing so well, so he's got to make the money himself.
Right? Okay.
I don't know what
That's
the purse.
Not a good sign.
No, I don't know what the purse is for winning a camel race.
Yeah, I
but,
don't know.
I don't know.
Slipped a little, money under the table.
I think
probably.
that's all it is.
All right, on we go. Let's analyze and select here for today's card. We do have a number of scratches, even though we are on the turf. I thought the first race, which will not offer superfecta wagering because of the scratch of number 1, Texas Moon, we're down to 5. I had trouble with the first race. I mean, it's a good competitive race. I just had a hard time zeroing in on somebody to use on top. I mean, we both have the next big bling, who makes sense. But this is a $7,500 non-3 claimer. Texas-bred fillies, not the most consistent runners you'll ever see, but we're going favorites here in race 1.
And this is a race where the buyer par is 51, and almost all of them run over that. Sometimes we get races
that's usually
that don't.
A good sign.
Yeah, that's a good sign. The next big bling, I like this horse mainly because he's been running against quite a bit better than this. If you look his last 3 starts, one's in an allowance, 2 are in $30,000 non-winners at 3. This is only $7,500. Most recent race on the main track was at Houston, where it says he raced 4 to 5 wide, dueling for the lead, held on to finish 3rd. He's had a lot of turf races, but if you go down to last year at Houston, dirt races, allowance races, those are very competitive too.
Yeah.
So basically on the class drop, I like the next big bling. This wasn't going to be an entry, but you also wonder if Karen Jacks thought, I don't need 2 in this race. I'll put Texas Moon in a race later in the in the meet because I think this one's doing well, this mare, and it's sticking with the next big bling.
A lot of droppers in this race. They're all older fillies and mares. We pretty much all caught their act. Like you do, I immediately look for blinker changes. Mariah, the 3 is blinkers off, but her form just isn't, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like she's quite good enough, even with the possibility of improvement with blinkers off. Bally Gurley, is kind of likes the lower claiming ranks, comes out of a decent race. But the next big bling, you mentioned that last dirt race that was taken off the turf. Actually, she obliterated the buyer par in that race. So if that is legit here, she is clearly the one to beat. So I'm just a little skeptical of that first race because I think there are some non-vulnerable favorites today, but there's a number of favorites today that I think are pretty solid. So we'll see. Second race, no super. State-bred fillies and mares 3 and up. 7/8 of a mile. This might be one of the shortest price favorites we'll see, other than a really good horse, that might come in. Scratch the 1,000 Angels, scratch the 3 Checkers Song. They were both originally in my top 4. Now, School Teacher, it's hard to say that. This wasn't a strong 20 claimer to begin with for maidens.
No, it wasn't.
And then you take 2 kind of somewhat contenders out of it, although the form on the two that scratched isn't very good. Boy, I mean, school teacher.
Yeah.
She's a 3-year-old, but she should romp.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about also a stable that's really struggling.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
they haven't won a race in a couple seasons, but got this one perfectly spotted. Finishes second for 50,000, in for 20. Has that perfect running style that most handicappers believe is a perfect running style. A front running 2-turn runner, cutting back to an extended sprint distance. That Beyer figure of 43 just dwarfs what the rest of these have been able to produce. Some of these races at Houston, the Beyers are so low. I mean, it's hard to believe some of these horses can get narrowly defeated, like Along Came Thunder. I picked second, gets caught in the final strides and gets a 7.
Yeah,
I mean, we got a very good guy that does the Houston figures, but boy, that is slow. I mean, that's a really low number. And Come On Sing, it's a front-running 2-turn animal. He cuts back off a, really sad fig. Mindy Willis, will be much lower than 20-1 now with these scratches. But that one, I started thinking about it when I was preparing. I thought, well, man, she tried turf the first time. What happens if she just doesn't like the turf whatsoever? And then the other side of my brain said, Rick, Mindy works horses fast. This horse is all out to go 119 for 3/4, 104 and 3.
Yep.
Mindy generally works horses pretty fast. And then I started thinking, maybe not. Maybe school teachers gonna win this race.
Yeah, I do have Mindy's Firster as a second pick, only to see a new face in there. Come On Sing. You were talking about slow Beyers. I mean, she ran, admittedly, creepy crawly fractions going a mile, but it was a slow group.
Mm-hmm.
Only beaten 2 lengths and earns a 4.
I know. That's unreal.
That's usually what they get for being almost eased and finishing up the track.
Yeah, Gillespie, I might give out a winner at 12, but
yeah, exactly.
Not at Houston.
That's the kind of place.
Not at Houston.
Exactly.
I may have to review that one and see what's going on.
Race 3. Hey, 7.5 on the turf. First time since day 2 of the meet that we're back on the turf because of all this midweek rain we've had. Filly optional claimers, $30,000. And there's one in here, a couple of them in here for the tag, and there's a couple of other ways you can get in this race, non-winners of 3 being one, but Sky's the limit. Another one. We could have a very formful start to the card.
Right, looks like
If we don't, it's going to be wacky things, but the 4 maturity dates out of here, that leaves Sky's the limit as, she was already going to be a heavy favorite.
Yeah, and she's 7 years old now, but based on her 6-year-old year, that was every bit as solid and good as every other year of her career. She made another $88,000. She won 3 of 10 in the exacta 6 of 10. Her most recent race was on the main track, but you look at her turf races at Remington, in the fall, they were exceptionally good. In for 30,000. Karen Jacks, she's been doing really well for several years now.
Yeah.
I mean, she spots them to win, and Floyd Wethy, they've been a really good combination. She gets herself in a great position to win. She's either on the lead or tracking the lead if it's a fast pace. I mean, it's hers to lose, we could say, in this spot. There's others with ability. I mean, that's
Sure.
the good news for you. Calhoun's spotting his horses. His horses are running dynamite. And then Talking Katie for Scott Young. I mean, he finished second at the exact same condition at Remington in the fall. He's a pretty nice horse. And it wasn't that far behind Sky's the Limit at Houston in February.
Yeah. I gave some thought to picking Fine Finish on top, the 6. A 3-year-old, has never faced older, lone 3-year-old in the field, had a outside post at the fairgrounds last time, sprinting 1 turn, 6 wide, never really had much of a chance. I like being drawn outside as much as the next guy in sprints, but the 11 hole, I don't know, that's pretty far out there.
It is.
But if you go back to 2 races ago, Fine Finish ran a really nice $100,000 optional claimer for sophomore fillies at the fairgrounds. Set the pace, finished 3rd, kind of definitely a slow pace. But I just don't know if numbers-wise, Sky's the Limit could even have sort of an off day of sorts and might still beat her.
Yeah,
so that's why I decided to use her second.
Yeah, the fine finish is interesting because she rallies at Churchill Downs in the fall, finishes second, and then at Fairgrounds finishes third on the lead, but the two first and second place finishers came back to win.
Yeah.
I should have looked to see what kind of company those two came back to win in. That 73 is probably more indicative of her ability than the 66, just based on the key race factor of that Feb 7th race. So I think you're right. I think fine finish is probably the second most likely winner.
You know, and you can easily toss that last race. It was a rough trip, 6 wide.
And it's a sprint, you know.
And a sprint. So, you know, the way Calhoun and Cabrera are going, I mean,
yeah, I agree.
They're even right now so hot, they're exceeding what you see on paper in some cases. Race 4. Texas bred $7,500 claimers, non-winners of 2. No scratches out of this one. They're going 1 mile. And for the 4th straight race, we're on the same horse. I will eventually be picking against some favorites today, but I wanted to in this spot, but I just couldn't. I mean, Mr. Jaws, to me, I mean, he's kind of back to reality here. He broke his maiden against T-Breds, and then they tried him a little too ambitiously, and now he's, you know, kind of back down with friends.
Yeah, I don't like how they spotted this horse at all. I mean, he proved in his first 2 turf races he can't stand the surface.
Exactly.
You're going to give him a third try after a romping maiden special weight win and a strong workout at Lone Star, and you're going to go back to the
put
turf.
Put him in against horses like Silver Assassin that are like veteran turf runners.
Yeah, I don't understand that move at all. But his dirt races dwarf these. I mean, and he's versatile. You see wins on the lead from off of the pace. And, again, if you draw a line through those turf races, he's actually pretty consistent as well. And this is a big drop in class. I mean, he wins a special weight 2 races ago. I've talked about this before. Usually you want a non-2 for 20 at least. He's down for $7,500. Could be seen as a negative, too. I have to admit to that. But just on paper, what you see, I mean, he's the logical horse in here.
I agree. You know, we both have Mucho Macho Cam as a second pick. He's making a drop, not as dramatically but he's coming out of Open Company, 17.5 non-2 down to this. That's a pretty significant drop, too. Mm-hmm. He wasn't very competitive in that spot, but again, that was a turf race. He's back to his better surface. Mucho Macho Cam, 0 for 5 on the grass. 1 for 9 with a second on the dirt rather. He could factor. Brody's Treasure stretches back out to 1 mile. I'm going to be curious. He is claimed by Mark Hibden, who's been very active in the early going in this meet at the claiming box and has had a really good year. I mean, 39 wins already for Mark Hibden, who hasn't always trained. I know in the past Broberg trained some of his horses that he owned. So he's having a good year. I threw him in there.
I would say going to San Antonio, his best numbers are in the 50s, and he's going to probably make the lead. All he does is sprint, and he gets to the lead sprinting. So if he'll go this far, you know, he stands a chance. His only 2-turn race was on turf, so I think you can toss that one. I think we'll have to see. I know that mud track race makes him look bad as well, so you take out the mud, the turf. You know, he'll be on the lead.
Yeah.
He'll be on the lead.
He's one of those, I've seen him before and was unimpressed. And
you're tired of that act, is what you're telling me.
And that is not good, though, as a handicapper, because I am tired of his act, but as soon as you start talking like that, you ignore the fact that he could run a better race on the front end.
Yes.
But I'm a little bit of an emotional handicapper, and that gets in the way sometimes. You got to be cold-blooded as a handicapper.
You do.
Race 5. 7/8 of a mile. Bottom maiden, or at least for the time being, bottom $7,500 maiden claiming fillies. No scratches out of this one.
Yeah, the 6 Isabella for Robert Wernuth. I remember the Gap person calling up first time I didn't know the person at all, the trainer. And she said like Werner or something, and I said, oh, okay. The Gap person didn't even know that.
There was somebody
Robert
named
Wernuth.
Ronnie Werner.
There was.
Remember?
Yeah, he was exceptionally good. This guy's off to a good start. You know, I have to give him that. He's hitting at 21%. So I looked up his career record because I wanted to see, what kind of impact he might have. He's been at Tampa, and then he goes to Delaware usually later in the year, but I'm glad he's here.
Yeah.
This horse ran a really good first start here in the region on April 6th at Houston. Not breaking great, finishing well. Do notice the winner of that race was 1-5.
Yes.
And got to the front and won for Bob Young. So that's actually a really nice race. I like that she's 4 years old. It looks like, based on the one race, she's going to love 7 furlongs, stretching out from 6. So just based on the competition being so badly overmatched and making a good showing. I should also mention, going from an apprentice rider to one of our top veteran riders over the last, 20 years. So Isobella seems like the horse I want to go with.
Yeah, I'm going with a morning line favorite again in Run Judy Run. This is the first race today that we differ on our top picks. I respect Isobella. I watched that race, gained some experience after having been off for a year and a half. So, and ran okay. I mean, Maybelly and Glitters Andy, the first two, were both Bob Young trainees. As you mentioned, Maybelly wired them as a heavy favorite. Glitters Andy came back and ran second here. Maybelly has come back and run at this meet and ran decently. Didn't win, but ran decently. For a race at that level, that was a pretty good effort. But I'm going to try Run Judy Run. It takes a little bit of a class drop from the $10,000 level, but had just a really slow start going a mile last time. Spotted them some ground. Made a decent enough rally. The 4 to 5 shot, Summertime E, was the winner of that race. Wasn't going to be defeated. Run Judy Run was well clear of the rest. I think she might like the 7/8. I'm going to take her against older runners here.
The pace figures of these contenders are really slow.
Aren't they, though?
I mean,
40s?
this race is tailor-made for someone like Skelly of Steve Asmussen.
Oh, yeah.
But now my point is,
jet out there and just say goodbye.
Yeah, when the favorites are all closers, I mean, it's nice to come up with a horse. I'll just throw out Pebbles Be Awesome,
Yep.
who, someone like that. This is cutting back from a 2-turn race to a 7/8 front-running router, just as an example. But if you can figure out who might make an easy lead in here, you're going to get value.
True. Because I would bet that Run Judy Run for sure is not going to be making an easy lead. On to the 6th. 3-year-olds and up here. Open maiden $25,000 claimers. A mile on turf. Scratch 3, Golden Pursuit.
Yeah, I like the 8, King of the Disco. Sean Davis was having a really rough year. He gets here and, he's picked up the pace. His horses seem to be training good. If I didn't know his record in 2025, I'd just assume he's been winning at 20% like he typically does. He gets David Cabrera for King of the Disco. His turf races last season, one at Lone Star, one at Remington, and made Special Weight Company, were good performances. Gets Lasix for the first time. I like that he's dropping from a special weight to the maiden claiming ranks. And that jockey-trainer combination, when Davis uses Cabrera, I mean, nearly 30% winners team together. And there's others in here. I think it's a competitive race, but just based on a bunch of different variables, I think King of the Discos might be the one to beat in here.
I agree with you. I mean, I have him 4th in there only because, he's kind of short on the line at 5-2, the second choice. But I'm going to try to beat him. So, I respect his status, but figure if I'm not going to pick him on top, I'm going to go with Keep the Kingdom. Matt Hebert, Santos Rivera. This horse adds blinkers, stretches out from a 5/8 turf sprint, where he was about 12-1. He broke slowly that day. It was his first career start. He finished okay, not great. He's come back to work since one time, just a little maintenance half-mile breeze. They're keeping him on turf. They're taking that drop out of maiden special weights. I'm just going to give him a shot in a race where I recognize that Atlantic Storm and King of the Disco and even Extravagant Prince, who I kind of like, first time for Diodoro, I'm going to give a shot to a long shot because I'm just not necessarily sold on the rest. I think Atlantic Storm is intriguing because he just missed last time to Gwyneth's Malibu by a neck. Going a mile on turf at Houston at this very level at 7-2, he can make the lead. It's just a matter of, has he shown any real stick-to-itiveness?
Yeah, and as we mentioned a lot, if you can run a race like Atlantic Storm did at Houston, this turf course usually carries speed a little bit easier. This turf course later in the summer will be a little more speed favoring than now. There's probably still some give in it, but my point is this turf course carries speed a little better than Houston's. So normally I would pick a horse like Atlantic Storm. And I have nothing negative to say about him at all. If you like Atlantic Storm, you go with it because I thought he was the most likely winner in here, and that's why I made him the favorite. But I think this is a pretty competitive race. I like your pick. Abear works his horses very slow, so you can never say, I don't like the way he's coming into the race. This guy works his horses about as slow as anyone out there. Gustafson, too, generally speaking, but, so you can't go by the time of workouts for certain trainers.
And Diodoro first time versus older with the 9 Extravagant Prince.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't humiliated in a couple of those fairgrounds turf races. Hated the Tapeta at Woodbine. I think it's fair to say he never wants a synthetic track ever again. I mean, he can barely stand up on that. But, his last race was rugged, but he was 40-1, too. And he was I looked up the condition, if you're interested in that. That's a maiden optional claimer where you could be in for $50K as a claiming race, or you could have sold or been a reserve not attained for $50,000 at your most recent auction. Yeah. So it's one of those sale price restricted maiden races and a $50,000 claimer.
Yeah.
That's what he was in at the fairgrounds.
Yeah, and Andy Beyer hates races with conditions like that.
Really?
Because we try to make our speed figures based on par for each level. I mean, what's the par for that level? A maiden allowance, or is it a maiden 50? And
right. I can
so
see
we have to toss that out as far as making we just have to base it on the other races, not on the card, not that one, because those with weird conditions, I mean, how do you know what the par is?
From a betting standpoint, I kind of like that because, obviously it was done to Baffert-proof and Pletcher-proof some of these maiden races where you get $1 million yearlings against $10,000 yearlings.
Yeah.
And the little guy has no shot. So at places like Keeneland, Oak Lawn, and whatnot, I see it. Mm-hmm. But I can see why, from a fig standpoint, it would complicate things.
Yeah.
Race 7. 3/4 of a mile, $10,000 beaten claimer. You can be a non-winner of 4, or you could be a non-winner of a race this year. Scratch a horse I gave a little outside shot to, the 7 Jeeps Stride. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to take a little swing in here with Loco Luna, who's your second pick. I'm going to try to beat Runway Magic. We'll see if that's going to happen or not.
Yeah, I mean, 5-2, I thought a lot of them could win in here. I usually don't like horses that move up in class like Runway Magic, but I really like him because in a certain situation like this one where he was running great at fairgrounds, places like that last year, so he's got a lot of back class. He runs a clunker to start 2025. They drop him in for a nickel, and he runs a vastly improved race. I'm thinking Cravens is thinking, you know what, I think I got this horse back to the form he was showing in 2024. Yeah. If that's the case, he can win a $10,000 claimer. I mean, he was competing very well for $30,000 in New Orleans last winter. Yeah. So if the trainer's right, then he's going to be very difficult to beat. He hasn't won since 2023, but do remember he was in over his head so much of 2024 that, if Ronnie has him back and right, he's going to run a really good race today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that he was with other barns,
yes,
a lot early in his career. Some good ones, but, Craven's got a great effort out of him, and it does show some confidence. He's willing to move him up. I'm going to go with Loco Luna. Capalucci's off to a pretty good start this meet. This horse hasn't been out since February, but does have a couple of April works. Capalucci's that come from Sunland seem to be working very fast. Oh. They all seem to.
Yes.
But this horse turns back from a mile to 6 furlongs, can handle the 6 furlongs, likes a dry, fast track, which he'll get today. The Beyers are pretty consistent over in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he comes down out of the high altitudes for the first time. Oh, we'll see.
He owns so many of his horses. I mean, I don't study it, but I notice he owns an awful lot of his horses. That's
well, he can make his own decisions in that case.
You can, and you get to keep the money. I think if you win a lot of races like Cappellucci does, it's probably good to own your own horses. Yeah. He does an exceptional job.
Run Happy Doro's interesting. Comes out of a 70 Beyer. Now, it was last November. He's been off, but has what looks like a really, energetic work, and that's another Cappellucci.
Yep.
Red Summer Bird is intriguing to me. Last year here, he came back from a layoff, a little short layoff, and second off the layoff, he was very good. His first race back was so-so. He's second off a layoff here, although he has been off since February. I don't know. I just think Mindy's horse could be a little dangerous in here.
And the patented good 5/8 breeze for that same Red Summer Bird, 1 minute and 4/5. So that's the type of breeze you expect Mindy's horses to have, generally speaking.
There's some good contention in that race.
There is.
8th race, 6 furlongs. Texas Breds, optional claimer. You can be in for $20K, or you can be a non-winner of 3, career, or non-winner of 2 other than. Scratch the 3, Tis a Bling. Promising 3-year-old who takes some contention out of here. Scratch the 7 and 8 as well.
Yeah, I scratch into the 10, turn north for Abel. Ramirez Rodriguez, he did a great job at Oaklawn Park. He always dominates down in South Louisiana, but, I like horses that trained by him. Last time, a bit of a sluggish start, finishes well at Houston at basically the same condition. He was even money that day, to give you an idea, how much money Carl Broberg may have lost. But
even though Broberg doesn't own this horse, I'm pretty sure that if he's well meant, Carl knows about it.
Yeah, I hope Carl knows that's a joke. But nevertheless, this horse has put 4 really good races in succession. He's not a habitual bad breaker. Usually when I see slow start, I go through all the comment lines to make sure it's not a horse that breaks bad all the time. He's broke a little sluggishly in his last 2. But basically, I like outside post positions with horses that come from a little bit out of it. And this trainer, I just expect him to be dynamite this meeting.
Yeah. Turn North loves Lone Star Park. He loves, he's familiar with Texas Breds. His numbers are consistent. I think he's the best in here without much doubt now that Tis a Bling is out. Tom Sawyer for Steve Asmussen comes out of the a 2-turn race. Texas Thoroughbred Association Derby, 15-1. Was up in it for a while and just chucked it in. I don't think he wants any part of 2 turns, but, he's drilled 3 times since that race. It was a month ago.
Yep.
If he comes back, he's a 3-year-old, but I don't know if he can beat Turn North sprinting, but he did beat older horses 2 races back.
He beat Turn North at Houston on February 7th, I see.
So
I don't know how I overlooked that.
I used him second. Fort Hood is pretty reliable, too, and he loves this racetrack.
Yes.
And Texas Code, that just beat him, came back and ran second the other day behind a horse that just ran out of his skin named Saltwater Cowboy a couple of days ago. So, Texas Code came back and ran pretty well. 9th race. I like this race. I like this 9th race. I'm taking a shot. I might kick myself later, but 5/8 of a mile. I love turf sprints. These are all older horses. First level allowance. Scratch the 12 and 13. I really wanted to. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, no, we haven't switched. I was going to say we both picked the same horse. Your horse, Wild West Justice.
That's the 8th race picks up there right now.
Yeah, we'll get that. He's clearly the one to beat, but I'm going to try to beat him with Mindy Willis and Stuart Elliott coming back off a nearly year layoff. I might be on something, but I'm going to try it. Totally respecting Wild West Justice. Certainly a repeat of his last race wins, because he was just nipped at the wire. It looks like maybe he coughed up a 2-length lead. He led that to like the third to the last stride, and that Yacht Rock, who's won 2 in a row, just nailed him right on the wire. So, he thinks he won the race. So a repeat wins, but I think Imperial, I'll talk about my horse later, but you can talk about the favorite, because he's He's clearly the one to beat.
He's far from a cinch, Wild West Justice, but I love that last race. He had a really good trainer. Brittany Russell does a really good job. This horse, for a previous trainer last year at Colonial, I mean, he still ran good. My point is, Wild West Justice doesn't have to bring his turf course around. He's good over pretty much everywhere they've shipped him.
Colonial. That's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Look for the purse money they run at Colonial, and he ran an 80 on that turf.
Yeah, I'm expecting Sean Davis again. I picked him earlier on the card, and I think he's got potentially the one to beat in here. The horse Cabarra just finished behind him last time out, so it's hard not to throw him out. And your pick at least has that 2 bullet 5/8 breezes, off the bench. So I'd like to think that, he's going to run a really good race today.
Imperial Redbird, if you go back to his career debut, he was with a different trainer. Mindy Willis claimed him. That's the ultimate coming back off a layoff because they've never run before. He ran pretty well. Ran second, beaten a length and a half, was nearly 10 lengths ahead of the third. Then they go through and they campaign him, he's off for a long, long time. They campaign him. Show some speed. He's okay. They put him on turf. He runs his best buyers on turf. This is last spring here. Gets a feel of the turf course, then he goes back to the sidelines. He's a 6-year-old. He's only run 9 times, so he's obviously had some physical issues. But he's training like a hole in the wind, even considering Mindy trains them fast. I just have a feeling he might be able to work out a trip here with Stuart Elliott's confident handling to where maybe there's going to be enough. I worry a little that the Devil's Bet, who you kind of need a quarter horse to beat him to the lead. I mean, he is super fast.
Right.
I normally don't try to trip handicap 5/8 turf sprints that much, but Wild West Justice, who loves the lead, I mean, can you beat the Devil's Bet to the lead? I don't know. I mean,
that's really hard to say.
So I'm going to hope that Imperial Redbird might work out a little trip out there. Gabarra's another one that always finishes well. And so he could benefit. I mean, I hate to trip handicap these. You end up outsmarting yourself instead of just going with the fastest horse.
Yeah.
But good race.
Yeah, it's a really good race to, finish the card.
I don't know if I like the Devil's Bet to win the race, but he could be a factor if he runs as fast early as he has done.
Yeah, he'll definitely be an early factor in the race. I have trouble seeing him holding on with, Sean Davis's horse breathing down his neck for 5/8 of a mile. They
probably will. Yeah, I mean, Cabrera may get Sean Davis's horse to sit right off of him and pressure him.
Yeah, it makes for a really good race.
It is a really good race. All right, that's it for us for today. Enjoy the extreme racing. Rick, we will do it all again next week.
Yeah.
They've already drawn the Derby, so you can go online and look at the entries for that. We can talk about that next week, but in the meantime, thanks as always.
Yeah, good luck to you.
Thanks to you for looking in, and enjoy your day here at Lone Star Park.
In the event of an emergency, Lone Star Park is dedicated to